we're talking about communication skills. So
Mm-hmm.
I automatically think about, in my life, I don't know, it might be similar to you. I sought out different tools and techniques to help me with relating.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, for you. Whether it was nonviolent communication, crucial conversations, radical honesty,
Mm-hmm.
neurolinguistic programming, all these types of things
The
that
good stuff.
help you with not only the way you're communicating with yourself, but the way you're communicating with other people.
Mm-hmm.
How does authentic relating fall in with all these other kind of frameworks for healthy and
Mm.
constructive communication?
The interesting thing about authentic relating is it's mostly just practiced through games. I found the word for this the other day of serious games, which are like games that teach you skills that are not just like kind of competitive playable. They're like specific, yeah, skill training or working on things like agile games might be an example of
Mm-hmm.
these. And it's less like here's a communication structure and more like we have games for all sorts of different situations. One of our best games is nonviolent communication. Like I read the book and I was like, this could be a game. So
Yeah.
it's just a game where one person talks, the other reflects, first person clarifies, adds, reiterates, and then the other person says, this is what I think I understand about you based on your share.
Yeah.
There are games like Watermelon, which is a silly perception training game where one person just says watermelon and the other says you seem and names like the way that someone is showing up. There's
Mm-hmm.
curiosity games where you get to ask questions for a certain period of time and then say how you're impacted. So each of them, you could say, trains different skills. And it's fun because you can create different flows of these. You can be like, okay, I want to help people experience, for instance, their relationship to themselves and different parts of themselves. So I'm going to start by giving some prompts for people to talk with each other about what are different parts of yourself that you would name, what are parts that are in conflict. Then I'm going to do like some sort of meditation where people get in contact with like their inner crew of different selves.
An IFS type of thing.
Yeah, and then an IFS game that we call Split Brain, where you identify two parts of self that are in conflict and you actually assign them to two different people, and then you act as the director while those people dialogue about this
Sounds like
decision.
Gestalt.
Yeah, in a way. And so we're gamifying all of these different psychological techniques
Yeah.
and practices and going, how can we string these together to give people a really deep experiential experience that is specific to the person? Like less like we want you to get an outcome and more like what are you going to discover from this?
Yeah.
And then through the process of sharing our discoveries with each other, you get this rounded experience of everyone sees this differently. How do we play it out together?
Yeah, I love the like you're pulling from everything. Like I
Mm-hmm.
hear that Gestalt or even radical honesty where you have the empty chair, where you have two different people that are really just yourself kind of
Mm-hmm.
communicating. You have the MVC, you have all these different things pulled into a game format,
Yeah.
which really reminds me of improv. I've
Yeah.
been facilitating improv for many, many years and then ended up teaching facilitators to facilitate it. And that's a very experiential teaching environment.
Yeah. I was
We,
just listening to Impro on the way over here by Keith Johnstone. It's one of my
yeah,
favorite books.
yeah. Johnstone's one of the founders of some powerful stuff. And that's a place where I think if you do it right, I love Viola Spolin.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it right, the games do all of the teaching.
Yeah.
And you just kind of pick a flow of games to kind of move things along.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of skill training on a daily basis. I have classes in facilitation, I have classes in how to have difficult conversations, in community building. But one of my absolute favorite events that we do, and we do this on a weekly basis for free, and we've run it for like 3 years like that, and many more years intermittently before, is called Fight Lab. And we just get folks in a room together on Zoom because we've got a pretty international audience. There are like 40 to 60 authentic relating and circling communities worldwide at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty broad. So we get people on Zoom and we're just like, okay, what are scenarios you're struggling with? And we trade off weeks between leadership scenarios and one-on-one scenarios. And we vote on the ones that have the most appeal in the group. Like most people are like, yes, I have trouble with that. Like last week, we worked on one around boundaries that someone brought. They were having a conflict with a neighbor. And then the week before that, it was someone that had been leading an LGBTQ event on touch and consent. And they had some trans folks speak up about not feeling like their experience was represented enough. So really interesting scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And we set it up and we do a role play. And first, we encourage that the person who brought the scenario that's struggling actually plays the antagonist. They play the person they're struggling with to really get in their head.
Strong man their argument, right?
And also to show everybody else how that person interacts. So in future versions, they can represent it accurately. But you can also be a witness. You can try being yourself first round. And after the role play, we stop it and we go, okay, what happened? How did you feel as the antagonist? Like what worked for you about what the facilitator protagonist did? What didn't work? Where did you contract? Where did you like feel like something and you relaxed? Then we get reflections from the rest of the group. I'll do like maybe a tiny bit of like, if they're struggling, like here's a skill that you can try. But for the most part, it's peer coaching. It's experience. It's like a little bit of exposure therapy.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
And much as I want to believe that my techniques are the coolest thing, a lot of the time for people just getting to try something and getting feedback and getting to hear from their peers is actually the most valuable thing.
Yeah, there's something about when someone gives advice or gives strategies, I always appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about stumbling until I find it. And it's always going to be a little different than what they suggested, but they can point the way.
Yeah.
But it'll never stand in for just kind of faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
Like just getting out there and being messy.
Something I like saying is that teaching is general and learning is specific.
Yeah.
So you really have to give enough time for people to try things. There's a technique that I really love from the rationalist organization CFAR, the Center for Applied Rationality. They do a bunch of programs on how do you confront cognitive bias. And they have this tool called Murphy Jitsu. Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
So if you teach people a new technique or they make a decision about something, you go, okay, we're going to Murphy Jitsu this.
Yeah.
It's a month from now. How surprised would you be if you don't follow through on this decision or you didn't integrate this technique? And if you're like, I wouldn't actually be that surprised. Some part of me knows I'm not really going to do this. Then you go back and you revise it.
Because you're not all in.
No. And that's the thing about it is like people, they like the idea of things. I'll say people, but also me.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I love this technique. I love this piece of advice. I'm definitely going to implement it. And then I find myself not doing it because the hypothetical and the reality are really different. Even people's assessment of how much time something will take, studies show that we're wildly inaccurate.
Yeah. Being a software engineer and estimating is a big thing. When people estimate how long it'll take to do things.
Do you know the idea of Socratic ducking in software?
What's
Okay.
this?
So this is another version of like, we secretly know things that like our cognitive mind doesn't, but like we actually know how long something's going to take or what the issue is. There used to be something in software engineering where a software engineer would finish a piece of code or whatever it was. And then a day or two later, they see their manager walking towards them with a crestfallen look. And all of a sudden, and even before the manager comes, they're like, I know what went wrong.
Oh, yeah, this is the rubber duck.
Exactly.
The rubber duck, you would go, I've heard of that.
Uh-huh.
That's where you like go to your colleague and tell him what you're having trouble with. And by the time you're done telling them what you're having trouble with, you know the answer and then you go back and fix it. And then the people said, well, why don't you just talk to a rubber duck?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So in the organization I got it from, they called it Socratic ducking because you would just like ask questions of the duck and answer your own questions.
And then you like, it just comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.